Hello.
Hi, how you doing? I was talking with a possible investor, so that took a while. You just can't get off the phone when you're talking about $10 million of stuff.
Right.
Yeah. All right. You ready?
Just get off the squeaky couch. Right. Okay. Ready.
All right, here we go. It's time for Tim Talk on the Big Fat American Radio Network. I'm Zach Martin. There's 5 different things we're going to talk about today on the show. One is when your world is falling apart, how do we hold it together? The blame game, pity party, or power play. Put down that donut, why we are emotional eaters. Friends and family don't usually help you shed pounds. Isn't that the truth? Taking the high road, should we? And why our new centers for adults with autism opening. What's happening with St. Sophia's mission update? Okay, so we got all of those things that we're going to get to today. We'll start with number 1 on our list. When our world is falling apart. Well, this is a very interesting topic to talk about, and I think that sometimes our ground gets shaky when we compromise our guiding principles. Before I talk about guiding principles and how we put those together and grow our personal foundation, which helps us to basically have, I would say, less stress in our lives. Let's bring in Timothy and let's find out what's going on his side of the country. Any updates in the world of autism or what you're working on?
Pretty much the 5 topics really do hit on some of the things that we're seeing. I really don't want to get into the animosity and name calling and name throwing and political strategy right now. I just want to keep people level and balanced and floating and going the direction they want to go, and then bring it back to how we can use the tools that are at our fingertips, our friends, our family, our faith, our foundation, and how we can keep everything together, even if you're in the middle of the storm.
Well, I talked about guiding principles and first personal foundations, which you brought up as well. And let me just go over that a little bit. I think that when we look at our lives, we generally start off with, what do we want to be when we grow up? When we're little, we start to play policeman and fireman and astronaut. I remember, by the way, playing astronaut to the point where it might be hot out and the car was parked in the driveway. And I would go into the car, open the front door, maybe close it up or put the window down. I don't specifically remember. And I would go upside down in the seat and pretend like I was an astronaut on the Apollo spacecraft, touching all the buttons around me and pretending like I was going to the moon. So we have these imaginations that we are supposed to cultivate. We'd go out and play make-believe Army and Navy and war games. We pretend like we were in the World Series of the Super Bowl. You make the winning catch. You'd be the great quarterback. And you think about what life would be like maybe 10 to 20 years from your current age. So if you're 6 or 7, that seems like a long time. And then you think to yourself, my gosh, that person's 50. Oh, boy, is that old. Well, before you know it, you're in your 50s and in your 60s, and you're looking towards retirement. And then you look back and maybe you have some regrets. Maybe you don't. Maybe you have a really good life. Or along the way, you have these challenges. You might end up with a sickness. You might end up with a child with special needs. You might end up with a child that has autism. What do you do now? Definitely didn't go according to plan, did it? So how do you live your life when bad things happen, or when you're being challenged, or when you're being stressed, or when you don't have enough money in the bank? If you read the Bible, it says don't worry about tomorrow. Tomorrow has its own evils. Just worry about today is the basic message. Now, how do you do that? How do you really do that? And it starts with this faith and trust in God. That's number 1. Let's go back a little bit, Timothy. What did you want to be when you grew up?
I wanted to be a professional chess player.
Okay, professional. Why was that?
It just was something that I was really good at, and I was winning tournaments across the country, and I thought I could be Bobby Fischer plus.
Now, that's awesome. Now, I would play chess every now and then in life. It's like a big chess match. And you might remember in the movie Patton, he goes, General, they don't know whether you're acting or not. He goes, it's not important for them to know whether I'm acting. It's important for me to know. So the whole chess game is great for life because you have to plot and plan, and you have to anticipate what's coming down the road. And when you can anticipate a little bit, then you get ready for whatever might be coming. So most of us will spend our life going to school and learning what they teach us in school, and maybe participating in a sport and having the vision to go into college and having this great career. And we think about material things. We think about the jobs and what we're going to do, but we never really focus on who we are. And if we don't understand who we are, that's when you're not in proper homeostasis. You're not, you're all out of sorts. You really don't know who you are. A lot of men will do this. They go to, let's just say, a situation in a singles bar, Timothy, and they meet a girl. Girl goes up, hey, how you doing? How you doing? And they start getting in a conversation. And in 5 minutes, the guy pretty much tells the girl all about what he does, and she doesn't know who he is. She finds out that he's an executive with an insurance company, that he has a really cool car, where he lives, and she can generally get an idea how much money he makes. And it's sort of like when you see the pigeons before they mate, they puff out their chest to make them look big and strong. That's what people do. You know, it's like, it's animalistic. You got to present this great facade, you know, look at me. But when you get to who the person is, well, then you really get to the most important part. Now, who you are is sort of formed by your values and your ethics, which formulate your guiding principles. And with your guiding principles, you have a personal foundation in which you have boundaries. You have kind of a pathway that you put together, maybe an action plan. And you focus on who you are, not the what. Because the what, it could change. But the who is what you're left with. And I know it sounds like I'm talking in circles, but part of the who you are, besides the intellectual capacity that you might or might not have and wanting to grow that, is your spiritual connection, your spiritual development, your soul, your mind, your body, your spirit. It's all together. So why do we always neglect that? Why don't we make that a priority? Why don't we get up every day and start off with prayer? And then throughout the day, pray to God. And then before we go to bed, pray to God. First thing on your mind, God. The last thing on your mind, God. Read the Bible on a daily basis. Put some effort into that. Develop who you are spiritually. Because then when you get hit with all of these different challenges, at least you have that inner strength and the faith to leave it to God. I mean, that's where the rubber hits the road right there, Timothy, by trusting in God and having faith that it's all going to work out. Now, you and I have both been in situations where I don't know if we're going to be able to pay the bill. We're overdraft. You know, we have the overdraft, overdrawn bank accounts. And it could be up to $200, and it just never seems to stop. And they're going to turn the lights out, and they're going to turn the water off, and they're, might repossess your car. You might have to go bankrupt. All of these flipping things that can drive most people batty. Well, over the years, Timothy, I've learned to just take it all in stride. There's nothing I can do with things that I can't control. I guess that's
right.
Part of
I think a big part of the who you are is combined not only with the faith that's kind of like the engine that kind of drives everything, that kind of holds it together, but also that you have a really defined purpose in your life.
That's right.
This is where you want to get to. And so I think that's a big part of the balance of especially for men our age, is having that purpose, that we've gone through and let a lot of the childhood dreams, the youthful exuberance, the chasing of women, the things of the world that have kind of just gone by, and it has left us. And the men that succeed through the storm are the ones that kind of combine this faith, family, community purpose into the who you are, that you are a good citizen, you're grounded, and that you have this spiritual driving you towards this purpose. And no matter what gets thrown at you, even if the bank and the house is being foreclosed and the cars are being towed away, you're going to drive through that storm to the next challenge, and you're still going to be there because action cures fear, and you're always in action, in faith, with a purpose.
And our rewards are eternal rewards that we should focus on. Focus first on the kingdom of heaven. It says so in the Bible. That's what the Bible says. So it's good advice to do that. And when you find here's what I basically have come to the conclusion. I just say that this: God I want to do your will. What's your will for me? And I do that full of faith and not in fear, and I'm not double-minded about it. Whatever it is that God wants me to do, I'm going to do it. Some of the stuff that God wants me to do is downright crazy sometimes, I think. It just doesn't make any sense. Like Noah building the ark didn't make any sense way back in the time that Noah's building the ark. There was no real lakes around him or any ocean. There was really, some say it never even rained. So there he is building this gigantic ark, and God only told him one time. It took him 120 years, and they made fun of him the entire time. And he says, well, you got to, what?
Something that you've taught me, too, is that even though we're looking at this spiritual life hereafter, I think something you've taught me, too, is that we need to make sure that our wife is happy, our children are happy, and we take time to breathe and smell the air and take a deep breath and take a walk, exercise, and reward ourselves and be happy by either going to a movie or going to Disneyland or whatever it is. You need to take those vacations and reset your life and look after yourself as well along in this journey.
Oh, self-care is very important. In fact, self-care is selfless, not selfish. Because if you're not taking care of yourself, you can't take care of anybody else. You're not there, right? You're not where you should be. All of those things are good. And the one thing I will say, and we'll move on, the whole thing about understanding who you are, your guiding principles, your ethics, and not compromising any of those things for any reason, that's called living in integrity. Anytime you step off of that, you're not in integrity, and then you'll have this conflict, this emotional conflict. You'll be depressed and all of those different things. You brought brought up the part of having a purpose, and this is what I want to do about updating you regarding St. Sophia's mission. Our mission, and the Big Fat American Media Company, which we're trying to get investors for, and we got the media plans out. Which I think you've seen what I came up with Big Fat American. I think you'll like that whole business plan. You like that? Timothy?
It's amazing group of documents, and I think you've, as a team, everybody's really thought out where we want to go and what we want to do and what we can do in the new world. I think it's absolutely a revolution from putting together an organic farm and trying to have everybody live on a farm together, but in taking it to an evolution where we're using new media to build self-esteem, provide jobs. You do things for those with disabilities, right, specifically more so the people with autism.
So with that in mind, I think that one of the, challenges I've seen for some of our kids that are either on the spectrum or have a variety of disabilities, when they go into school, they're really not included, they're excluded. And they have these small contained classrooms, and we're told it's really for the best. And sometimes they'll include them in other activities with the rest of the students in school. And then some of the students can either be mean or condescending or embrace them or form phony friendships. What kids do. I mean, we've all done that in our lives. But there comes a point where I think that they give up on these kids and they go from education to indoctrination. And the indoctrination includes political indoctrination, which I find one of the most foulest things I could ever imagine to happen in a public school. Never mind separation of church and state. Politics has no place in the schools. You should not have a teacher getting up in front of a class telling them who to vote for, condemning one politician while supporting it. There's no place for any of that. If you want to celebrate the inauguration of whomever the president is that gets into office, you decide that you want to have everybody watch it on television, you sit there and you learn the civic lesson. But that's about it. I really am appalled. I'm insulted, and I'm beside myself about some of the indoctrination that happens in schools. And, when we have our current president, they look at him and they go, racist, bigot, Nazi. That labeling, by the way, is right out of the Nazi playbook. This is what they did. They demonized their opponents. There's nothing to demonize anybody, regardless of their political orientation, whether you're a Republican or Democrat. I think both types of people, both types of parties, or both parties, I should say, want a better America, not a worse America. So just that is really getting my blood to boil lately, this going back and forth. And yes, I understand some of the tweets that the president puts out there are a little bit off, but you know what you could do? You can frickin' ignore it, too. You don't have to. You wanted to talk about taking the high road? That's one way of doing it. You saw what happened. Yeah.
You make me laugh. I was trying to avoid that subject, but I want my job, my career, my world, my political party to understand how Twitter works. Twitter is just like a garbage can of thoughts and feelings, and you can basically barf up anything that comes in your mind. And you shouldn't be losing your job. You shouldn't be over a single tweet in a free country with free speech. You should be allowed to tweet 140, 240, whatever characters it is now. You should be able to tweet anything you want, and that should be allowed in the public square.
Well, the other thing is, the other day there was some demonstration in New York City about the border issue. And there was a lot of people sitting in the streets, and I was looking at the helicopter over the crowd. They were filming it, and I go, you know, it'd be great? Water balloons right now, big water balloon fight. And my wife, she chastised me. She goes, shouldn't do that. You'll get in trouble. You could lose your job. See, what do you mean I could lose my job? I'm only allowed to poke fun at conservatives. Is that it? I'm only allowed to tweet things that go along with the liberal crowd. Is that it? I mean, you got to be kidding me. I'm not allowed to have my own independent thinking. I'm not allowed to come up with my own conclusions based on my knowledge and based on what I know. I'm not allowed to have my own opinion. If I have a different opinion, I should lose my job. Oh boy. I mean, it's like for people who call themselves progressive and inclusive, I get it that the Republicans sometimes can do really crazy things over the years and say horrible things. But these guys who call themselves progressive and liberal, you're more dangerous. And if I'm insulting you because I'm telling you you're more dangerous, then it's time for a checkup from the neck up. I mean, it's just crazy to me. The crying and the petulant attitude and the turning blue. It's like you're a little child. I get to pass out because you refuse to breathe as you hold your breath. And so everybody should really take some stock. Oh, my gosh. It's okay to have difference of opinions. And the guy in the White House shouldn't be the be-all and end-all of your day. Oh, my gosh, get a life. Seriously. And you celebrities, I don't need you to tell me how to vote. I don't need you to tell me what to think. I don't need you to tell me what to do. Just because you're a celebrity doesn't make you an expert on any frickin' thing. Gosh. All right, sorry about that rant. Had to get it off my chest. I mean, and I'm not saying anything that's crazy political here. I'm just asking everybody to, how about center yourself? The extremes are just what's tearing us apart. Does anybody use common sense anymore? And maybe you're mad at me, but maybe I do have a point. Try using some common frickin' sense. Do the old thing. My dad used to tell me, Timothy, well, what you got to do is get a piece of paper and do your pros and cons and check off your pros and cons. And if you have more pros and cons, then maybe you go with the pro argument. If you have more cons than pros, then go the other way. But don't make a decision as a reaction. Make sure that you respond. Oh, yes, the difference between reacting and responding is called using your intellect. I'll let you stew on that. So part of the whole indoctrination and education is what we call community-based instruction, Timothy, in which the ideas are to help these people on the spectrum develop social skills, because parents don't know how to develop social skills. We don't know the idea about saying things like please and thank you and wait your turn and sharing, all of those things. Parents are incapable of that. All of us parents are taking drugs while we drive. Diet sodas with caffeine as we drive. You're doing drugs and you're driving. That's what the kids start to believe after a while. This community-based instruction, part of the social skills, they have kids go to local businesses and work for free. And they tell them, well, this is a good job for you, mopping and sweeping the floors. It's a good job for you. You'll be able to do this in life, filling the salt and pepper shakers. It's a good job for you to wash dishes. Yeah, it's a good job for me. You never done it. It's beneath you, right? Well, it's different. We're not talking about me. We're talking about you, little Johnny, little Jill. And I think it's demeaning. Here's the other part of it, Timothy. They're not paying these kids. So part of the life lesson is if I'm going to work for any company, in exchange for that work, I'm compensated. But so far, it's just the school does well, the business does well, but what does the kid do? Is his bank account prospering? Is he like learning how to save money, how to manage money? None of that. So it doesn't come into play. And the last time I checked, Timothy, community-based instruction, whatever you want to call it, and using a free labor force without paying them, the last time I checked, I think you might find that as part of the definition of slavery. And let's not pretend like that form of slavery or misuse of people is any better than trafficking. And it's not just sex trafficking that's taking place. It's human resource trafficking that's taking place. Somebody comes from another country. They don't have any documents. You put them in a state of fear. They're living off of, they're allowed to have a little house, a little domicile. They get their food, bread, and water. But they better show up and work like a dog. Otherwise, you're going to have to turn them into immigration, and they'll go back to where they came. So
we that was just revealed in Illinois that they have a couple charities that are running executives and family members of executives getting six-figure salaries when the people that work for them in these different charities are getting paid below minimum wage.
Yeah.
Because there's a law still on the books that says, oh, no matter what the minimum wage is, you can pay sub-minimum wage because these people aren't as valuable to society.
Right.
To me, not going as far as slavery, but definitely in the realm of discrimination that people are screaming about at borders and things like that. These are citizens that they're treating as subhuman.
Well, listen, when you don't pay somebody a fair wage, that is a lot like slavery. And I'm gonna say something. I'm preaching here. If you call yourself a Christian, hello, if you don't pay people a livable wage, then you're committing a really big sin. You're heaping coals upon your head, and you might as well just call yourself a murderer if you do stuff like that. That's how bad it is. It's gross negligence, and you're not going to get away with it. Don't rationalize it. Do something about it, like Zacchaeus. Zacchaeus found out that Jesus was coming in his area, and he was a short guy. He was a publican, and he was a tax collector. Oh, they hated tax collectors back in the day of Jesus. Whoa. Because they would not only collect taxes for Rome, but they would make sure that they padded it so they had more for themselves. And usually the tax collectors were the richest guys, the most hated guys, and probably did whatever they wanted to do in their neighborhoods. So Jesus sees Zacchaeus up in a tree, and master calls him, and he comes running to Jesus, runs down that tree, and he goes, Zacchaeus, I saw you under that tree. Today I'm going to dine at your house. Well, can you imagine the look on everybody's face, the Pharisees and the Sadducees, the ruling class and the religious? Jesus is going to go dine with that guy? That sinner, that publican, that scum, the one who's taken advantage of all of these people? And he does just that. So Jesus is sitting down and having dinner with Zacchaeus, and he's probably looking around, and he has that moment where Zacchaeus is showing him everything he's got. He's really proud of it, and Jesus probably pierced him with his eyes, and Zacchaeus said, oh, my, I really have to change my ways. I have to repent. And he makes this big announcement. Whatever I've taken, I'm going to give back fourfold. I'm going to give half of what I own to the poor, because there were a lot of poor in that area. And he became a new person. He repented. He changed his ways. So you have to have that heart of Zacchaeus and see that if you're in business and you're taking advantage of people and there's disparity, like you're the CEO. Hello, CEO. You're making $20, $30 million a year because you think you're so great. But you have people that can't even put food on the table. How dare you? How dare you consider yourself a human being? You're going to hell if you keep that up. So I really think that we all have a part to play in this. And when we see the injustice, if we stay silent, that means we're complicit. I'm not going to stay silent about that anymore. That's part of our mission, to give people meaningful jobs, to pay them the best we can. We're starting right around $15 an hour. I know it sounds like I'm repeating what some of the people in Congress say, but I think when I do the math, I'm like, okay, I think I could do this for maybe up to 40 people to start us off. And what are the tasks involved? Well, if somebody's disabled, I know that a lot of disabled people can't get out of the house as a primary caregiver. So I think, especially if somebody's active on social media, we can make some Facebook pages, and then, we set up some Google alerts so that they put stuff on the page and set it up so it comes out at certain times of day. Maybe they do some tweets, and then we promote some of the sponsors who are behind us. Make sure you check it out. Maybe we do some contests here and there, but it gives people meaningful work, and they get paid to do it, and they learn something, and it gives somebody a purpose. I've become I feel like a dad to a lot of people. The worst thing you can tell me if you're my kid is like, Dad, I'm bored. I've got nothing to do. Oh, you're bored, are you? I'll give you plenty to do. So I apologize for getting a little bit animated about what's taking place in the political stage, but it's definitely not. What's happening now is definitely not how it should be. This is, you can't say that you love people and then openly hate anybody to the level that we're seeing it right now. So if you're a politician, whether you're Republican or Democrat, maybe you got to learn how to take the high road. We all have to learn how to take the high road. It's what we're talking about today. And why should we? Because it's really better for our own development. And it's, whether you believe or not, God exists. It's what God would want us to do. It's what God wants us to do. Then we have these other issues that happen around us. So I guess I updated you. We have the business plan for BFA. We're seeking funding. I think we're going to get that pretty quickly. We have some signature brand radio products that we're going to put out for big corporations. They're going to be kind of costly, but hey, advertising is 100% deductible. We're making radio great again. And what I mean by that, affordable to local businesses at very cut rate ads, dollar ads. So in New York, you can actually buy time on the radio for about $122 for a 60-second spot. How about that, Timothy? You like that?
I love supporting the small business,
Yeah.
and I love supporting the people with special needs having real self-esteem. Everything about it is really good, wholesome, purpose-driven, Christian-based work, I think.
Yeah, I think so too. And then on St. Sophia's mission, what that's going to do is, first of all, we got a couple of projects that we need to fund right away. So I guess we'll start a GoFundMe. Timothy is really part of St. Sophia's mission. I have him slated to be president. We have we've incorporated it. We have a bank account. We just got to, move that along a little bit. I was going to take some of the money that I make from my regular job and help seed St. Sophia's mission. But let me just tell you a couple of the projects that we have going on. One young man, Nicky, he's an artist. He has severe cerebral palsy, and he sits in a wheelchair, and it's very hard for him to communicate. He paints with his feet. It's the most amazing thing. Really good artwork. He paints with his feet. He's trying to, live his life with a purpose. So he's an artist. He's got a mobile disc jockey service. So when I would have a birthday party for my daughter, Nicky's our DJ, and I pay him some money to do that. But I don't know why, and I haven't asked Nicky about this, but I'm wondering why he can't have the same sort of communication devices that Steve Hawking used when he was alive. It would be easier for somebody like Nicky to communicate if he had better communication devices. So that's number one on the list. Number two on the list is a guy who's got HIV, AIDS, and he lives in a group home that I minister to. He's blind, and there's apparently this attachment that you can put on your glasses, and it could monitor threats. I guess it's a little bit of AI, and I think that there's something that goes like an earpiece into your ear. So it'll tell you when traffic is coming. It'll tell you when threats are around. It's got facial recognition. So when it sees a friend that you would recognize with your sight, it does that for you and say, oh, Johnny's coming here. It's Johnny so-and-so. It's got that kind of technology. It can read the instructions on a box. It could help you with medication, like take pill 2 times a day with food, whatever it might be. It could tell you, I guess, what kind of weather, what the weather looks like outside. Maybe give it a tap. So it gives you the information so that you can move along. So we got communication device for Nicky. We have this technology, sort of like Google Glasses, I guess, for my friend who's blind. And then I think there was one, oh yes, in the food pantry in Passaic, New Jersey. Now, Passaic, New Jersey is one of the poorest towns in all of New Jersey. The median income is $13,000. Can you imagine living in the New York metro area only making $13,000? It's a Mexican-American area, so it's bilingual. Some people don't know English, but they do speak Spanish. Unfortunately, I don't know Spanish. I don't know enough Spanish to communicate, but I do know one thing, that there's a dire need for food supplies. There's a dire need for diapers and formula. Now, if you're going to call yourself pro-life and you're not willing to help out the babies that we have, we got a problem. And diapers and formula are very expensive. And I'm sure the medical care for these little ones is also up there, and maybe we can do something about that. Of course, you got clinics, and we're going to have a health fair in August 24th from St. Peter and Paul's in Passaic, New Jersey. So we're going to podcast that live. We'll have the mayor on as a special guest. So these are the projects that St. Sophia is going to implement, and the people that work at St. Sophia's mission across the country are people that are on the spectrum with disabilities, could be disabled vets, what have you, primary caregivers. But once again, meaningful work that will change the lives as many people as possible. I've given you 3 projects that we're working on, and I think they're good projects. And then part of St. Sophia's mission, because Timothy asked, and I got this idea from Timothy about micro radio stations. So we're going to work with local communities down the road to develop low-powered FMs in cooperation with either the Small Business Association or administration in local municipalities, the municipalities themselves. It's basically like I'll go to a mayor and I'll say, can we put up a tower here, a mini tower here? Okay, great. The transmitter will be here. And we'll set up a little studio. We'll go into the schools. We'll teach people how to utilize some of this technology. We'll make it accessible to the local business. This hour is sponsored by a grant through blah, 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 blah. Again, advertising is tax deductible. So it's a win-win-win-win-win. Helps develop small business, helps develop the Main Street in the community. If it's bilingual, then obviously we're multilingual. We'll have multilingual programming. We'll reach out to the schools, and we'll give people more options than the standard community-based instruction, which teaches you how to fill salt and pepper shakers. There's nothing wrong with that work if that's what you decide that you want to do. If you want to be a restaurateur, if you want to be the world's greatest dishwasher, and you decide that's what I was a dishwasher. When I did it, I gave it my all. I work like I worked for God when I did that job. It's not that it's beneath me. It's just it's really condescending, and it's wrong to tell people that this is the best, this is the only thing that they're able to do because of their quote-unquote disability. I mean, that's just awful. So that's the mentality, and that's the high road we're taking. And by the way,
I like the long-term mission too of addressing parents' number one fear of what happens to my child after I'm gone.
Oh, okay.
Child.
We didn't even.
So I like that as part of the long-term vision and motivation for the St. Sophia's mission too.
Oh, yeah. Well, we didn't get to that part of it. That's the other part of the plan. So you have Big Fat American Media. You know what our workforce is. You have St. Sophia's mission, and you understand what that mission's about. And then part 3 of this, or probably part 4, and in probably quick succession, because I'm already talking to people about this, is to create assisted living communities that really are. One of the things I do as a hospice chaplain is I go into some of these old folks' homes, and they smell. They're not pleasant. And food's not very good. And I could just imagine that for some kids with sensory issues, that's not a good place. So what I would like to do is develop these communities that are self-sufficient, that have some jobs that they can earn money participating in, and have like good food, like maybe a food court. So those choices, you know how the kids are, right? So you have those choices of good medical support.
Part I love too is there are communities across the country, few and far between, that were established 40 years ago, but they refuse to let the clients have TV, internet, technology on the premises. And to me, addressing in a new tech community, new world, these kids know how to use this technology. They should be allowed to have the freedom if they choose and want to play video games, or they want to do the internet, or they want to use YouTube videos. They should be allowed to do that.
Well, all part of the plan. And then, we're estate planning, all of those things come into play. But this assisted living communities are definitely on the target for St. Sophia's. And I would say, God willing, within the next 5 years. Step one, to create this company this year and to be operational by mid-2020 and to have 25 signals by 2022 is my goal. I think we can exceed that expectation and be ahead of the curve. Because if we have control of the media, then we have a little bit more power, and we just can't be taken lightly. And we're going to, I guess, develop a news source as well, which will rival some of the traditional news sources. It's going to be honest news, non-biased to the best of our ability. But, yeah, you got to embrace these technologies. I mean, a lot of these kids, they like their iPads, they like their iPhones, and so we're going to make those things available. So we have a plan for all of those. But the media plan is number one because right away it's going to create jobs. And the best part of it, if you have a child who's in his 20s or she's in her 20s, and you know how it can be with ASD and maybe other disabilities, maybe the social level is 13, 14. Okay, we can work with that. That's just an example. So you can't just have it an unfettered relationship. You got to be supportive, but have a bit of a safety net, that special someone that can keep the person going. You got to keep going all the time. That's another thing I will mention about the weight loss. But you got to keep going, because if you don't keep going, you're going to end up in a bad state and you'll be depressed. But anyway, as a kid approaches, and I say kid, I really should say young adult, Timothy. As somebody approaches the age of 27, that becomes the cutoff for family insurance, for the health benefits. So what BFA will do, because we know that it's critical at this point, creating these jobs so that people can actually have benefits that they need. Because, I would say, and you can answer this question, isn't it better to be able to work for a company and have your own benefits, health and well-being benefits, your vision, dental, whatever it might be, even if it costs you some money? I mean, we're going to try to offset the cost to the best of our ability. We're also going to have profit sharing, but that's for a different time. Isn't it better to have that option as opposed to going right on SSI, Timothy?
Anytime the government's involved,
yep,
things go down the rabbit hole the wrong way.
Oh, yeah.
And it's one of those basic tenets that you and I have of being conservative Christians is smaller government is better, and you have more control when you have control away from what the government tells you to do. So
yep.
That's a whole other bag of worms, probably for another show.
Yeah, definitely. Well, my point being is that we have these plans. So if you think, and I only mean if you think, I should say if you know that this is something that you want to help back, if you have the ability financially to invest in this, then get in touch with Timothy and we'll go from there. Only if you think you can do that, because I don't have time to deal with maybe what if. I don't need any of that stuff. We don't need any of that stuff. There are people with the resources, and I'm asking you if you can to step it up a little bit. Also, one other thing with St. Sophia's, we're developing a national raffle system, which will give away experience raffle prizes as well as 50/50s in conjunction with various other 501c3s so that other needs can be met, whether it's Neff Cure, Boomer Esiason Foundation, Culture City, muscular dystrophy, Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, pancreatic cancer, whatever those things might be. We're going to try to develop programs so that we can all work together. And what St. Sophia's will do is help put together these types of raffles and use our workforce to help promote them and help induce people into buying them along with our radio products. So we got that going on. Now, let's talk about our health and well-being as far as food goes. Put down the donuts. Why we are emotional eaters. So, Timothy, I think that this is probably something that you're really good at explaining. Why are we emotional eaters?
So much of our life centers, since pretty much the beginning of time, has been go out and you hunt, gather, put it together, then you eat and prepare a meal and eat as a family since the days of the caveman and early on. And so it becomes a social reward system that when you're sitting down to a wonderful Thanksgiving or Christmas meal, part of the whole day, a big part of the whole day, is eat, 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 eat. And it rolls over to the person who brings donuts to the office, to the person who brings pastry or cake or birthday cake. You always celebrate and emotionally eat. And so that's what the discussion is this week for your health tip, is to really think about the reasons why you are eating at that moment. And maybe there's a way to, I have very little self-control. So if somebody brings a box of donuts to me, 3 or 4 of them get eaten before I realize what has happened. So the title was Put Down the Donuts. And that's the thought for the week, is just really think about stepping away from the donuts, the cakes, the sweets this week.
Well, that's good. And don't enable people. In other words, when someone's on a diet, there's especially at home. I remember when I was trying to lose weight as a kid, my dad would eat potato chips in front of me. Go, I don't care. I'm not the one that has to lose weight. And that kind of attitude really sucks. And it only derails you. If you really love somebody, and if it really is tempting them, you don't have to do that in front of them. Go somewhere else. The other thing is, don't tell people, oh, you look thin enough. A little won't hurt you. You know, too many times of a little won't hurt you add up to it ends up hurting you. So be supportive. Don't try to thwart it, and don't try to derail people. Even though you think you're being nice, you're not really being nice. It's kind of mean-spirited. And if you don't know that's mean-spirited, well, now you know. So don't do that kind of stuff. Do what you can to support people when they're trying to make positive changes. They need the support. They need that boosting confidence. That's the way to do it. So do you have any parting words of wisdom before we wrap the show up, Timothy?
My parting words of wisdom this week is, again, going back, and if you don't have that purpose, let us help you find that purpose. We're available social media-wise, at Tanner's Dad across all platforms. I'm really excited about Parler. I'm exploring Yell List, which is a new platform that is uncensored. Of course, MeWe and LinkedIn. There's a lot of other channels besides your just typical Facebook and Twitter to reach people. So feel free to reach out, Timothy Welsh on Facebook, and let's talk about some of these things this week.
Great. You can follow Timothy at Tanner's Dad on most platforms. You can subscribe to our podcast. If you don't have it, let's just say you don't have any money to donate. Here's what we're doing at Big Fat American. Subscribe, download, and share. Get your friends to do the same. Subscribe, download, and share on all the platforms that you can find Big Fat American. iTunes, iHeartRadio, which is huge for us. Radio.com, which is also huge for us. I don't know how I was able to pull that off. Radio.com and iHeart, are you kidding me? They're 2 of the major competitors. I'm on both. Not too many people can say that, so we must be good at what we do. We're on Stitcher. We're on TuneIn. So if you subscribe, download, and share, and get all your friends to do the same, and let's blow the roof off of this. I'm going to tell you right now, a majority of our earnings from the podcast side of things are going to fund these non-for-profit programs. It's going to help people. I'm not going to take a cent out of this for any sort of income whatsoever. It goes right into the 501c3 St. Sophia's, which will help fund all of those projects. You don't make a lot of money off the downloads. We had 400 downloads this past week, and we made a whole $1.74. So if we got 4,000, that would be $174. If we got whatever it is, I mean, it all adds up, though. Say we got millions, great, fantastic. Then I can go back to all of these various companies and knock on their door and go, hey, listen, you got to pay up. We got millions of downloads over here. You don't have too many podcasts that have millions of downloads. We do. And then we can also send it to our advertising guy, and he can put in some commercials, and we make more revenue that way. But whatever revenue we generate from our podcast side goes right to the non-for-profit side after we pay for the fees that it costs to do the podcast, to send them out. It's really low fees. I think they're like $20 a month. So they're not going to take much. Whatever it costs to make sure that we are able to distribute, once we pay that, then all the rest goes towards the non-for-profit. You like that idea, Timothy? This way, everybody, no matter who you are, will be able to help other people by a simple subscribe, download, and share.